Welcome to another episode of the Holy Cross Weekly Podcast. I'm your host, Nate Claiborne, and here once again with Jared Jones. How we doing, Jared?
I am doing well. Looking forward to discussing Passion Sunday with you.
That's right. It's hard to believe it. And it feels like yesterday it was still Epiphany and we were in the middle of January, and then now we're a week and a half away from Palm Sunday and Holy Week and all that entails. And we talked about that a lot last week. We gave people a lot of details about what was going on with Holy Week, just some of the philosophy behind it. But just as a quick reminder for people, we do have services Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of Holy Week at noon, Thursday at 6, and then Good Friday at noon. And then, of course, Easter sunrise at 6:30, and then a standard 10:15 service as well.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm really hoping that we can push with people the importance of Holy Week. Not in the sense of God is, sitting back waiting for you to treat this week specially. But in the sense that I do actually, I think I mentioned this last week. I just think the kind of emotional, uh, the way that things kind of get stirred up during this week, just is very powerful, and you see it in people as we look back on this important week in church history, and really the history of the world. So I would more say it's important for you to have a place to process those emotions. And if you've been feeling kind of maybe a little bit dry in your faith and your walk with God, maybe there's something underneath the surface that's getting ready to crack open, like water, starting to trickle out of dried and cracked ground. What an image. But maybe that's you, and maybe that's what God is going to do through not anything special, the normal things he does, which is through the word and sacrament, ordinary means. He might do something extraordinary in your life. And so we really look forward to Holy Week, and we've got a lot of services planned. And I mentioned Sunday, the point of us planning those services is for people to come to them. So we would love for you to come.
Yeah. Join us in person, especially. But if for whatever reason you can't get away, we're going to have those streaming online as well. But before we get to Holy Week, we've got kind of a warm up. We're doing. I don't know if you want to think of it as a warm up. I'm thinking of it as a warm up of the Lenten
Tune-up.
Hymn Sing, a tune up. Oh, there we go. You got the pun right there. So a tune up for Holy Week on March 20th. That's a Friday night, and we're going to meet in the parish hall for one of our hymn sings. We'll have some snacks and some drinks, but if you're really hungry, eat before you come and be ready to hang out, and more importantly, to sing. So, Jared, tell us a little bit. I'm new to the Holy Cross community, and so I was not around. I don't think the last time there was a hymn sing, I think I was out of town for the Christmas one. But for my benefit, but really for others as well, give us a little bit, peek behind the curtain of why hymn sings. Why is that a thing that we're doing several times a year? And then also, what could people really expect at this Lenten hymn sing? Is it all songs in minor keys that are going to be real slow and dour, and or is it going to be
Right.
what are we looking for?
Well, I think one of the reasons why we do the hymn sings is to train us in. I think sometimes we have this idea that worship is just this passive thing that we experience, and we pay for people to pull it off professionally, and there's a certain amount of like truth to that for guests. We want guests to come in and feel like they have a good experience, and things seem orderly, and things seem like we care. But one of the things that people can experience in worship that you can't experience anywhere else, you can experience beautiful music, and you can experience motivating talks. One of the things that you cannot experience anymore. Well, one, preaching is a little more than a motivational talk, and then there's the
Mhm.
sacrament, and you can't get that anywhere else. All right, top three would be kind of communal singing that's very vibrant and heartfelt. Um, and we really think it's one of the things that we strive for at Holy Cross is congregational singing. We never want the choir or the music production, or even when we bring in instrumentalists, which we love doing. We never want that to kind of overtake. We would rather it support and kind of buttress the main thing, and the main thing is God's people gather together in song, singing not only to the Lord but to one another, um, about the Lord, is a mutual encouragement to each other, and as an expression of our mutual joy um, in the Lord. So music is at the heart of what we do at Holy Cross. And so one of the things that we tried to do with the hymn sings is really give us opportunities to learn together how to sing, and to feel confident that we can go out and sing. Um, and so it's not choir practice. We're not like stopping things and going like, no, it's this note, but it's just a chance to enjoy singing together. And for those who feel very confident to, express their gift, maybe those who don't feel as confident, to kind of get in a room and you know find some confidence. And so, one is to continue to train us in something that we think is really important for our church, which is congregational singing. And two, is for our mutual edification, just to enjoy singing with each other, but more importantly, to sing about true things. So, no, the Holy Week hymn sing, or whatever we call it, is not the Lenten Hymn Sing, is not kind of a dirge. It's not in minor key. There is plenty of rejoicing. Um, Paul teaches us that we should boast in the power of the cross. The cross is not something that we mourn, but rather it is the very uh, it's the very heart of our song. Like a college fight song,
Mhm.
um, is not a moment of shame, but a moment that you're most proud of is the fight song. Well, our fight song is the cross,
Mhm.
and so we sing together, we rejoice together, um, and uh, and in so doing, we think God is actually intimately involved. So, I would love for you to come out. It's not long, about an hour, and a great place to invite friends to, um, and including people that go to other churches. And this is not like we're not trying to steal anybody from other churches, but it's just a great way to get some other Christians in the room and sing together.
Yeah. Well, as people are hearing this and, this episode coming out, this is this Friday. So, if you don't already have plans this Friday at 6 o'clock, we would love to see you.
Cancel them.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was gonna say you cancel them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Join us this Friday at 6 p.m. in the parish hall. We're gonna sing some songs, just have a great time of fellowship together. One other thing we should mention real quick, and then we'll get into our passages, is this Palm Sunday picnic in the park that we're gonna be doing on Palm Sunday, hence the title, Palm Sunday Picnic in the Park. But we're not gonna go right across the street from the church. We're actually gonna go up to Fort Mellon Park up on the lake, and we're gonna have a pavilion reserved, and we'll have some drinks for people, sodas, waters, juice for the kids and whatnot. Just encourage people to, bring your own lunch. If you want to stop at a spot on First Street on your way in, grab lunch, you could do that. If you want to bring sandwiches and chips and whatever, I believe there's going to be grills there. So if you wanted to bring food and, grill yourself some burger and dogs, you could do that as well. But we're just looking forward to hanging out together on a nice Sunday afternoon after Palm Sunday and just kind of see where the afternoon takes us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun. And bring whatever food you want to bring. I'll probably have a nice pub sub.
Yeah. Okay. That's
Can't
it's,
go
it's
wrong with a pub sub.
I was gonna say it's a Floridian, So it's a different
Delicacy,
version of
really.
when you pick it up in the morning to take it to the beach. This is like you pick it up in the morning and then it's there right after service.
Yeah. Yeah.
Head on up to Fort Mellon Park and we'll see you there. So, all right. So our passages, this Sunday is Passion Sunday. Just because I'm curious, Passion Sunday is that it's still technically Lent. It's like Lent 5. It's fifth Sunday in Lent, but it has a special name of Passion Sunday. Is that right?
Yeah, the way the 1928 prayer book says it's called the fifth Sunday in Lent, commonly called Passion Sunday. So in the 79 prayer book, which is technically our prayer book, but again at Holy Cross we're doing a different lectionary for a couple years as a trial, and we're actually going back to an older lectionary. So our lectionary is a little off from other Episcopal churches. In the 79 prayer book, they kind of merge Passion Sunday and Palm Sunday. And I think, unfortunately so. But because you skip through the whole, anyways, no comment.
There's so many details you could go into here, so many rabbit trails we could take. But
Right.
at the end
So
of the
yeah,
day,
it's called the fifth Sunday of Lent, commonly called Passion Sunday, and the
okay.
readings all begin to focus us on what is coming up next.
Okay. So it's a tune-up in its own right as well. So this is like tune-up weekend is what we got coming up.
That's right. That's what we'll start calling it, tune-up weekend. And that's how actual liturgy gets invented. Is somebody had an idea one time, and then 500 years from now, they'll be reading a prayer book, and they'll be like, the fifth Sunday, the fifth weekend of Lent, commonly called tune-up weekend.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, wow, what a deep theological thing. It's like, no, just two guys on a podcast made it up.
That's right. Yeah.
So.
But
Well, yeah, let me read the collect, and then
Yeah.
we'll look at the text. So the collect for the fifth Sunday in Lent, commonly called Passion Sunday, is we beseech thee, Almighty God, mercifully to look upon thy people, that by thy great goodness we may be governed and preserved evermore, both in body and soul, through Jesus Christ our Lord. And amen. A very short and kind of a lot of the Lenten collects in the older prayer book are just very short and to the point, because you read that Ash Wednesday collect every Sunday of Lent. But they've kind of grown on me, these kind of quick petitions of God help us, quite literally.
Yeah. Well, let me read. We'll kind of just keep the same pattern we had last time. I'm going to read our Old Testament lesson, and then we'll talk about it, and then go from there. So, our Old Testament lesson is a reading from the book of Numbers. From Mount Hor, they set out by the way to the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom. And the people became impatient on the way, and the people spoke against God and against Moses. Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no food and no water, and we loathe this worthless food. Then the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, so that many people of Israel died. And the people came to Moses and said, We have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord that he take away the serpents from us. So Moses prayed for the people, and the Lord said to Moses, Make a fiery serpent and set it on a pole, and everyone who is bitten when he sees it shall live. So Moses made a bronze serpent and set it on a pole, and if a serpent bit anyone, he would look at the bronze serpent and live. Numbers 21, 4-9, the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Be to God. Yeah, one of the strange passages in the Old Testament, like these serpents attacking, fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and many people of Israel died. Pretty brutal.
It is pretty brutal. It sets. I talked about this one time in a Bible class in Numbers, and it is the land of Edom, that they're going to go around the land of Edom. So they're going through the plains. So this is literally snakes on a plane. That's a deep cut for people out there. But
nice.
it's such a strange story, though, right? I mean, like, of all the things, not serpents, but fiery serpents.
Yeah. Yeah. So these fire serpents get sent out among God's people, bringing judgment. Um, and so the people turn back to God, acknowledge their sin, um, and ask God that He would take away these serpents. Um, and their intermediary Moses prays for the people, and then God tells Moses how they might um, be saved. I mean, it's an interesting story because, so first of all, it's an interesting story because it's had a profound impact in our culture. Um, this image of this bronze serpent is still the uh, the main image used in medical fields um, all over the world, right? It's kind of a maybe not all over the world, but in America for sure.
Yeah, it is, but it's a little it we this is a different rabbit trail we could go down. There is a relationship, but it's not quite a direct one. There's some Greco-Roman mythology that also uses the serpent in kind of a healing sense.
Yeah.
But it is it is weird if you think about it, that on the side of an ambulance, there's this pole with a snake on it. It's like, well, I don't know if that's what I wanna see rolling up when I've got a problem.
Right, right. What's the Greco-Roman background to it?
Um, I am not let's see. I'm gonna do some live deep dives on here, but it is, it's not quite I remember looking into this, um, because I recognize that connection too. I'm like, "Why is that?" But it is the rod of Asclepius, which is a single snake wrapped around a pole. So that's the kinda ambulance image. It's this sort of, uh, asterisk-looking symbol with a pole and a snake on it. Um, and Asclepius was the deity in Greek mythology associated with healing and medicine. Um, what's interesting about that, when you think about it, is Greco-Roman mythology develops after this story in Numbers. So
Mm,
it's that's how the connection kind of works, is there's this what we're using is actually from Greco-Roman mythology, but that's a later incident that I think it would be I don't think you would be too far out of line, to thinking that the ultimate story, the kind of base mythology, and it's not mythology in like the myth sense, but the kind of base story is this healing incident in the book of Numbers that then becomes, I'm sure this becomes, part of the discourse, as you might say, in the ancient world to some degree, because it's in the book of Numbers. But it is considered a biblical parallel to this rod of Asclepius, which I'm probably saying his name wrong, but we're gonna run with it. Um, that it's how do you have two different things in the ancient world that is a snake on a pole used for healing purposes, if there's not some sort of direct relationship between them? That's not it's just not it's and that's maybe even just as a side note for people. This is just a good rule of thumb when you're trying to make sense of stuff from the ancient world that you hear about. It's very unlikely that two different sources are going to create the same kind of story unless there's some sort of true event
yeah,
laying behind it. We talk about that
right.
with the flood narratives. Like every culture has a flood narrative, kind of suggests there's a real flood that happened. That sort of thing. So it's just
Yeah, I
it,
mean
it
that was a big impact on C.S. Lewis was kind of the idea that what if there was actually one true myth that all these
mhm.
other myths were springing out of, Um, I think that's what Tolkien told him. I can't remember the actual story on that, but I think it was he was saying basically because a lot of times people say, "Oh, well, look, Christianity is just like every other ancient myth.
Mhm.
It has all these characteristics." And I think C.S. Lewis was kind of talking about that, and Tolkien said, "Well, no, it's the one true fact that all these myths spring out of." Um, and and then that changed his paradigm of like, oh, like this is actually this is the real story, and all the
Yeah.
other ones are kind of rumors and the telephone game
Right.
from the
So
story.
it's a little platonic, but, in the good sense of, like, uh, there needs to be some sort of overarching archetypal category or form, if we wanna use Plato's actual, term for it, of which all these little individual instances participate, and they're not quite identical with it, and I think, there's a case to be made, maybe not in this podcast, but another time, that's really stories in general are really about redemption, and so there must be some kind of archetypal redemption story of which they
Hmm.
all participate and draw meaning from, and the fact that every culture and every person wants to hear stories that have happy endings. It tells you
Right.
something about what the world is like and what people are like, and points us towards the gospel in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and I think going back to actually this story, I think it's important that God um, uh, forces people to look upon that which terrifies them. Right? I mean, it's he doesn't say, "Oh, you're being attacked by snakes. Look at this giant bronze adorable bunny
Mm,
um, for your comfort." Um, he actually says, "I'm going to give you a bigger snake to look at. A big, a more terrifying image." Um, so the thing through which healing comes is that which we are most terrified of and that which is currently assaulting us, right? That the solution actually comes through the problem.
mhm,
I am being harassed by these snakes on the plane, and God says, "Look upon this snake and live." Um, and So I think obviously there's a parallel to this being in the New Testament in the Passion,
mhm,
because the solution to our problem is going to come through us beholding the problem in and of itself, which is the crucified God. Um that God, all of our best efforts and all of our goodness and all of our righteousness um actually ended, they culminated um, in us killing God.
mm,
You know, Roman society, which was known for its kind of justice, right? This rule of law, this sense of uh, civilized, the peak of civilization, um, which becomes kind of the Tower of Babel. It is kind of the Tower of Babel. It is the Babylon of the age. The peak human aspiration, and the peak of human religious aspiration in the Jews in the first century Judaism, of like, we've got to come back to the law, we've got to come back to we've got to get our lives right. Both of them on this quest for righteousness and goodness culminates in them aligning together to jointly kill God. Uh,
mhm,
and so the solution to our problem is actually found in the problem, which is we cannot help ourselves. All of our best efforts, all of our goodness is actually a problem, uh, because it puts us in a category of um, believing ourselves righteous for getting rid of this heretic Jesus, who's causing all these issues. Um, And so the problem with the snake bit people is that the solution to this snake bite is to look upon the snake and then be healed through it. Um, and that's why when Paul boasts in the cross, he's boasting in um, our inability to solve this problem,
mm,
um, being the solution. Like the solution is let go, like stop, like be passive and receive the grace and the goodness of God, that this man died for you. Um, and that actually begins to solve all your actual, even psychological problems, like your anxiety and your panic and your OCD, your need to control everything. A lot of that starts to the volume. You find the volume turning down when you become more passive and open to saying, it's all a gift. It's all grace. None of it. I'm not in control of any of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I mean, you highlight for us well there that we really make sense of this passage by looking forward to the way the New Testament writers, particularly John, makes direct reference to it, draws the connection to the crucified Christ. Because there's a sense in which, yeah, I mean, maybe you could make sense of this passage completely on its own, like without any reference to the New Testament. You're like, well, it's just a miraculous healing. That's all it is. But we really need the way John is going to come make the connection explicit of what this event is actually foreshadowing and what it really tells us about how true healing is found.
Yeah. 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 So the second reading, moving forward, Hebrews 9:11 through 15. But when Christ appeared as a high priest of the good things that we have, when Christ appeared as a high priest of the good things that have come, then through the greater and more perfect tent, not made with hands, that is not of this creation, he entered once for all into the holy places, not by means of the blood of goats and calves, but by means of his own blood, thus securing an eternal redemption. For if the blood of goats and bulls and the sprinkling of defiled persons with the ashes of a heifer sanctify for the purification of the flesh, how much more will the blood of Christ, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without blemish to God, purify our conscience from dead works to serve the living God? Therefore, he is the mediator of a new covenant, so that those who are called may receive the promised eternal inheritance, since a death has occurred that redeems them from the transgressions committed under the first covenant. You're doing your PhD work on atonement. This passage and flesh, particularly. This
Mhm.
passage seems like it's right up your alley. What's going on here?
Yeah, so I could take a lot of different rabbit trails here, but I'm actually gonna start. Let's start at the last verse and kind of work backwards a little bit of just noting the idea of a covenant requires a mediator. That's the way they're all set up throughout the Old Testament. So even as we get into the New Testament, Jesus is doing some sort of mediatorial role.
Why
So
why does a covenant require a mediator?
that's a good question. I wonder if, I mean, part of me wants to say because that's the way God set it up. Going even back to the garden of if there's Adam somehow represents all of humanity and God deals with Adam directly. But we just see that pattern repeated with Noah, with Abraham, with David, and then it culminates in Jesus being this mediator. I skipped over Moses. I shouldn't, which is bad because we were literally just talking about Moses. But we see it a little more clearly the type of mediator that Jesus is through Moses. Of somehow Moses is representing God to the people. He goes up on the mountain. He receives the word of the Lord. He brings it down to the people as God's spokesman to the people. But then he's also the representative of the people to God. So he comes up onto the mountain as a human representing the nation of Israel to engage with God. And so that pattern, I think, is what we've got going in here when we have Jesus. We're mixing categories a little bit it starts off by saying he's a high priest. So that's different. Moses was not the priest. Aaron was the priest. Moses was the prophet. But this is just another, I mean, there's just so much going on here of just the way Jesus combines the roles. So rather than have a separate king, priest, prophet as all different people, he's simultaneously the king of a new kingdom. He's the mediator of this covenant and functioning as a priest, but he's also a prophet who speaks the word of the Lord to us and in fact embodies the word of the Lord to us. And so this idea that he's somehow representing people to God and representing God to people, that logic, if we bring that back up into the the first part of the passage, he's somehow that it doesn't use the language of substitution in a direct sense, but there clearly is a type of substitution happening. So rather than the Old Testament rituals that involve the slaughtering of animals, we're now having, so instead of an animal dying, instead of the animal's blood being used for purification, we're using Jesus's blood for purification. It says the purification of the flesh, which that's where I don't want to get too far into the weeds with it, but that's kind of what my dissertation is centering on, is how do we make sense of some of these references to the flesh that seem to be both material and immaterial. And what I mean by that is the basic word for flesh literally is just meat. Like in Latin, it's carne, which is where we get
Carne
incarnate.
asada.
Well, yes, carne. Yeah, it's weird. I go either way with this. Like I say carne, and it's like you either think I could go for some tacos, or you think incarnation. But it's that's really what it is. Is
Oh, that's the
incarnate.
better one. Yeah. That's the more spiritual one.
It's the more spiritual one, but we're literally saying when we say Jesus became incarnate is that he became infleshed. He was previously not infleshed, then he became infleshed. But flesh also has these kind of immaterial connotations to it, where sometimes it's talked about, and I think we talked about this last week, of it's operating this kind of principle by which we can live self-sufficiently and in self-dependence instead of God dependence. And so one of our problems that we have to work through, and this is where I'm trying to do some work in my dissertation, is how do we live in the flesh, which is something we can't not do because we're human, but not live according to the flesh. And how does the atonement help deal with that problem?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
this passage kind of points us in that direction. It's drawing on a lot of Old Testament imagery, but it's saying that something Jesus did through his death purifies the flesh. And it's also something that is continual and ongoing. It doesn't quite say it in so many words in this passage, but the idea is he's ascended into heaven where he's in the presence of God, and he's able to represent this offering over and over again rather than it. So, and that's what makes it a one time for all,
Yeah.
which is a theme throughout Hebrews, is that, the blood of bulls and goats had to keep being slaughtered over and over again. So even as you
Right.
purified flesh, you purified the altar, impurity crept back in. Now we got to do something about it. And so what Jesus does through his death, it purifies flesh once for all. And so trying to figure out, kind of be able to explain that a little bit better than I just did, but to draw on this passage and a lot of other passages and what theologians have thought about it through the years. Getting the Old Testament right seems to be a piece of the puzzle, and it's something I'm working on right now for a paper that I'm going to present um, later on this month at a conference, to just be a little clearer on what's going on in Leviticus, and how does what Jesus does in the Gospels and then is explained to us in Hebrews solve a problem Leviticus was trying to solve but couldn't fully solve.
Yeah. 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 And it seems like one of the main ones is, how one is any sacrifice ever great enough to be done, like to be done with the sacrifices, or is this just an ongoing? You just have to. I mean, maybe it's kind of like people sometimes feel like, can I ever actually heal or change, or is my life going to be this ongoing kind of guilt management of these tiny screw ups,
Mhm.
or maybe big screw ups?
Yeah.
But can either time's a flat circle and you're just kind of going around and around and around again, or there's like can you ever get out of that cycle and into something new? And the Old Testament presents a cycle, and it's just going to be an forever cycle, but he promises someday that wheel's you're gonna shoot off of it into something actual new. And I think Hebrews is saying that something new actually did occur, that Christ has
Yeah.
actually completed it. and which means for your life, for your actual real lived experience, you can actually change. Like there's actual tomorrow doesn't have to be the same as today, because Christ actually has risen from the dead and has purified the heavenly tabernacle, um, and is your satisfaction.
Yeah.
Um, let's move to Matthew 20 through verses 20 through 28. There's a million things we could say on all these passages. We're trying to keep the episode short-ish.
Right.
So Matthew 20 through 28. Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee came up to him with her sons, and kneeling before him asked him for something. And he said to her, "What do you want?" She said to him, "Say that these two sons of mine are to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left in your kingdom." Jesus answered, "You do not know what you're asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I am to drink?" And they said to him, "We are able." He said to them, "You will drink my cup, but to sit at my right hand and to my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those to whom it has been prepared by my Father." And when the 10 heard it, they were indignant at the two brothers. But Jesus called them to him and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. It shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be your slave, even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." I love this passage, this Jewish mom who's asking Jesus, can both of my sons ignore these other guys?
Yeah.
I'm asking you, can both of my sons sit at your right hand, right and your left hand? And Jesus kind of responds. I love Jesus' response. You don't know what you're asking for,
Right. At the
Um,
very least, you have no idea what you're actually you think you're asking me for one thing, but
right.
that's not actually what you're asking.
And I think this sets up kind of Palm Sunday really well, because again, one of the things that's going to happen is that people are going to totally misunderstand everything that Jesus is there to do. Um, that Jesus is not there to be a shining bunny on a pole, you know, something fun and beautiful and wonderful to gaze upon, and everything's just going to be like a storybook romance, storybook ending. Um, he's actually there to become a rock of offense. Like he's there to become that Isaiah will say in the suffering servant songs. We despised him. We hid our eyes from it. We didn't want to look upon him was to look upon that which terrifies and disgusts us. That's what he was there to become, was something vile. And even Jesus's own disciples, are telling their moms, we're in early. We're in with the new kingdom's coming. He's been talking about the kingdom for the last couple of years. It's on its way. Mom, we're headed to Jerusalem soon. And she's like, I got an idea. I got this. I'm going to go to
Mhm.
Jesus and be like, "Hey, my two sons, more than any of these other guys, they have been faithful to you. Um, and the sons of Zebedee, that's John and Andrew? Or no.
Uh, no, James and John.
Okay, that's right.
You're thinking of Andrew and Peter, but just just
James
as
and
an
John, that's right.
yeah, just as an aside, like it, this is one of the evidences that sometimes gets looked over of how young some of the disciples are.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it's possible these are full grown men, but it's also more possible that we're talking about late teens. You know, they're not established enough to be doing their own thing. They don't have families at home per se, but they have a mom who is very zealous for their future
right.
and is going to
It's
try
also
to.
proof that helicopter parenting is not a modern phenomenon.
Yes,
you know,
yeah,
the tiger mom is actually thousands and thousands of years old.
uh-huh. Yeah, just read the Old Testament and the Gospels, and there's all sorts
Yeah.
of evidences there.
So you got a mom the type of mom who goes to their their college kids professors and asks them for favors for her sons,
Mhm.
right? This is what's actually happening here. And Jesus is saying, you don't know what you're asking for because you don't know what that's going to cost.
Yeah.
Um, and you don't know um, what the price, the cup that I'm going to have to drink in order to get to that place. Um, and if you did, you wouldn't be asking. Um,
Mhm.
and this is going to come up a lot in the Passion Week. I mean, Jesus will say things like, if you really knew what was going on, you would weep not for me, but for yourselves. If you really, he's going to say to Pilate, if you understood what kind of king I am, I could have my people here very quickly, and it would put your people to shame. Um, I'm a kingdom that's not of this world, right? Uh, Jesus is going to become more cryptic and more. Uh, all of you are totally missing everything that I'm trying to do, you know, um, and it's only going to become clear afterwards,
Mhm.
after the resurrection, to where James and John might have told Matthew about. Well, Matthew would have heard about it, and he's probably the one when the 10 heard it, they were incensed.
Mhm.
They were
He's
ticked
one of those.
off.
Yeah.
Uh, but then later, Matthew's including the story because he's like, wow, there's something going on there. There's something, there's some foreshadowing there that we didn't understand at the time.
Mhm.
Um, and James
Especially
and John
the
do
cup
actually go
language.
on. What'd you say?
I said especially the cup language is gonna show back up in a few more
Yeah,
chapters when we're in the
yeah.
garden. Okay.
James and John do end up drinking the cup. All of the apostles end up drinking the cup. Uh, but by the time they drink the cup, they're no longer worried about being at the right and the left hand of their Savior. You know, um, they they're more worried about, or they're more concerned with being a faithful witness to what's true, which is that Jesus is actually the Son of God, and he's not just an earthly ruler, because we could get at those anywhere, but he's the one true King over all the world, um, and uh, and his enthronement will be bloody and brutal, but necessary for the salvation of the world.
Well, I can't think of a better note to end on than that. So I'm glad we had a chance to sit down and talk through some of these passages together. Just as a reminder for people, if, Friday night rolls around, join us at the Lenten Hymn Sing. And we're hoping to see you not just at church for Passion Sunday, but for Palm Sunday and for Holy Week and all the services we have leading up to Easter and even after Easter. It's not like, Easter's the big grand finale and then we're done. We
Yeah,
still
believe it
keep
or not, we do have church the Sunday after Easter. Many people
that.
don't realize that.
Yeah, gets lost in the shuffle, but maybe not this
That's
year.
right.
So,
That's right.
well, Jared, it was great chatting with you, and I'll look forward to next week.
Absolutely. See you, Nate.
See ya.